Hello. So I've talked about forgiveness a couple of times, and I was just listening to something about how some people get around karma, right? Some people say there is no karma, but then a lot of people experience karma. And it's not really the fact that you believe in karma or not. I think it's the fact that to understanding. Some people understand how karma works and they're able to get around it. So you have people, specifically on YouTube, because that's where I've seen them, talk about how karma is not real. And some of these people master energy a lot better than others. So when they sit up there and say there is no karma, their audience could be a bunch of people who really don't even understand how it works in the first place. So they really shouldn't believe that there is no karma. And then they go around doing whatever they want to do and don't understand how to get around the consequences. Because some of the people that say these things, they understand how energy works a little bit, and they say these things without giving any other kind of backup, any other kind of explanation. But I want to talk about forgiveness again. And I talked about forgiveness, and I tell you, a lot of these people, I'm talking about people who are into spiritual work, and everything, they will tell you not to forgive. Because to them, forgiveness is about the other person and letting the other person get away with what they did. But the thing about forgiveness is, now if something just happened to you, obviously you're going to have some feelings about it, right? But holding on to a lot of resentment for a long time has a lot to do with the ego. No matter what was done, okay? No matter what was done. I know a lot of bad stuff has been done, okay? But no matter what was done, holding on to a lot of anger and resentment has a lot to do with the ego. And this guy said it best that I was listening to. Forgiveness is best to look at as a frequency. Forgiveness is a frequency. When you are on a frequency, and he also talked about grace, but I'm going to talk about forgiveness because that's a big deal. Forgiveness, I always say, well, I said before, forgiveness is like a return to sender. It's not like you're trying to hurt anybody, because if you forgive something and you have in your mind to hurt somebody else, then it's like it's not real forgiveness. But it can act as a return to sender, because when you really release, because I said this before, I used the word forgiveness and I said it's actually releasing. It's not about the other person. It's not about letting them get away with things. It's not about letting them back into your good graces. It's about releasing all of that negative energy and all of that stuff and all of those blockages up off of you. So you can be light as a feather. Okay? Because when you're holding on to unforgiveness, you're not light as a feather. And but when I talk about forgiveness, he said forgiveness is a frequency. I say forgiveness is releasing, but that's actually what he's saying too. But I like it better to explain I like it better to be explained by saying that forgiveness is a frequency. It's not about the other person. You're releasing all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with remembering so you don't make the same mistake twice. It's like some people say, some people try to hold on to something that somebody else did because they don't want to. Well, you don't have to trust them. I mean, when you are in a higher mind, when you are led by the spirit, when you're spirit led, sometimes those type of experiences won't even align with you anymore. So I'd rather get into a higher state of consciousness, a higher state of mind, okay? But staying upset with somebody, triggered by somebody, that's something that's constantly in you. That's something that's kind of holding you back. So, but yeah, I wanted to say it like that, because I heard somebody else who talked about forgiveness, like they're not going to forgive their parents, something that their parent did. They're not going to forgive their parent, because then if they forgive their parent, that allows for that energy to stay attached to them, like maybe in the next life. Okay, well, that's just how them and their ancestors, that's how they look at stuff, right? The way I'm seeing forgiveness is as releasing all of this negativity, all of this resentment, releasing it off of you. But like, you're not gonna mess with it. You're gonna know better than to deal with somebody who's not good for you. If they're not good for you, they're not good for you. It has nothing to do with unforgiveness. That's like if you touch a frying pan, right? You didn't realize it was hot, but after you touch it and you get burned, you're not gonna touch it again. Because you remember what happened the first time you touched it. It don't have a darn thing to do with unforgiveness. You remember you got burned, okay? You remember you got burned and you know you're not going to do it again. It has nothing to do with unforgiveness. You learned your lesson. You're not going to touch a frying pan that's hot, okay? And that's the same thing with people. When it comes to people who really done you bad, it could be a mother, it could be spouse, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, friend, whatever it is, it's when you decide not to deal with them anymore, it's not about unforgiveness. It's that you learned your lesson from letting them be close to you. You see what they did, and you're not going to go through that again, and you have no interest in going through that again. But see, what people like to do is when you don't want to deal with somebody again, they like to call it unforgiveness. Well, you don't want to forgive them because they can do the same thing again. You don't want to welcome that energy back into your life. Okay, so no. Forgiveness in this case is a frequency. It's about releasing. It's not about letting other people get back into your space just so they can burn you all over again. I mean, that's poor judgment. That's poor judgment. That's not even of the most high. Okay? So like, but anyway, and they also want to get on grace. And so they also talked about getting around karma is getting into grace, understanding grace. And once you get into grace, mercy and grace, and all of these things are frequencies. And once you get into that frequency of forgiveness, grace, and mercy, you pretty much override karma. I think you override the matrix. I really think you just override the matrix. You get into the forgiveness frequency, grace, and mercy. You basically, in my opinion, in my feeling, you override the matrix. But anyway, that's it, and I'll talk later.